The House is expected to vote today to hold former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows in contempt of Congress. The January 6th committee unanimously voted Monday night to recommend contempt charges. The vote now goes before the full House. Meadows reacted to the charges, defending himself on cable news.
This is not about me holding me in contempt. This is about Donald Trump and about actually going after him once again, continuing to go after Donald Trump. And when we look at the real results of this investigation, it is not really, the foundation is not based on a legislative purpose.
New text messages revealed by the January 6th committee show several high-profile people, including Donald Trump Jr., urging Meadows to push President Trump to end the riot. If Meadows is charged with contempt of Congress, he could face a penalty of up to a year in jail. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand has more from Washington.
The full House will soon vote on whether to find former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows in contempt of Congress.
His time as a member of the House should make him more aware of the potential consequences of defying a congressional subpoena.
Do we have a legitimate legal question here that we ought to resolve before we proceed with criminal contempt?
Monday night, the committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol voted unanimously to move forward with contempt charges after Meadows refused to comply with a subpoena citing executive privilege.
On my part, I've tried to share non-privileged information, but truly the executive privilege that Donald Trump has claimed is his to waive. It's not mine to waive. It's not Congress's to waive.
But Mr. Meadows has refused to give any testimony at all, even regarding non-privileged topics. That puts him in contempt of Congress.
Meadows had already shared some documents, and now we're getting a look at some of the text messages sent to Meadows during the assault on the Capitol. Fox News host Sean Hannity urged Meadows to tell President Trump to make a statement and ask people to leave the Capitol. Host Laura Ingraham did the same, adding, quote, he is destroying his legacy. Even the former president's oldest son texted Meadows saying he's got to condemn this ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. Meadows responded, quote, I am pushing it hard.
We as Republicans used to be unified on this point in terms of what happened on January 6th and the responsibility the president had to stop it.
If the full House approves the contempt referral, it will be up to the Justice Department to determine whether or not to file charges. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
I want to bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion now. Hi, Nikole. So apart from the two Republicans on the January 6th committee, will any other Republicans vote to hold Mark Meadows in contempt of Congress?
You know, that remains to be seen. We certainly expect this will be a party line vote, but aside from those two members on the committee, it's unlikely, but, you know, you never want to say never. Clearly, you know, a number of Republicans, even in the Rules Committee that took place this morning, were questioning some of the tactics by the committee, trying to discern whether or not, you know, not only the subpoena, but this contempt effort was really necessary. And so some members did question Chairman Thompson and Vice Chair Cheney about why they aren't calling others to the committee to try to get to the bottom of not only what happened, but also, you know, their primary concern is Capitol security. So that is a position of some Republicans on the Hill, but again, probably not enough to sway them to the other side in terms of supporting this contempt resolution at this time.
And yet, Nikole, one of the biggest details revealed during the committee vote last night were these text messages that Meadows received from several Fox News hosts, even Donald Trump Jr. What is the significance of these text messages in relation to the contempt charge?
Well, in the words of Vice Chair Liz Cheney, which she said last night after reading the litany of text, is that she feels that this shows the former president's supreme dereliction of duty, in her words, since the Capitol was under assault for 187 minutes, and yet the former president did not act. And as you can see, these are just a sampling of some of those text messages coming from Fox News personalities, Laura Ingraham among them, saying he is destroying his legacy. Other personalities personalities like Sean Hannity telling the former president to try to stop this, or telling Meadows that they want the former president to try to stop this. So either way you slice it, I mean, this was a clear pressure campaign to try to get the former president to concede, to call these rioters off. And as we know, that didn't necessarily happen right away. And so that's why the committee is bringing some of this to light to show that, they feel that the former president was negligent. This is why they want to talk to Meadows, to get at the why. Why didn't he call these rioters off? So far, they've got these documents and text messages, but, digging underneath the hood, trying to get the context behind that, that is their sole purpose in trying to question Meadows. And even in their contempt citation, they read through all these questions they wanted to ask him, not only about these messages, but other communications that he had with lawmakers, with other officials regarding the electoral process and the like. And so because they weren't able to win that cooperation, that's why they are moving forward with this contempt resolution.
And what has been Mark Meadows' defense and his strategy through this process? I mean, he decided not to continue cooperating, but he has revealed, some significant information already. So what is his strategy exactly?
Well, and his attorney actually contests that. He did issue a statement today saying that, these reports that his client, Mark Meadows, stopped cooperating isn't accurate in his view. In their view, they believe that Meadows has fully cooperated by providing these documents. Mark Meadows said as much in his interview yesterday as well, but their argument remains that some things should be protected by executive privilege and that no one can waive that right but the former president. So that's what they continue to argue. The committee counters by saying, executive privilege is not something that is absolute and it's not blanket. And if you're going to provide us with these non-privileged documents, you should be able to come sit before us and be deposed to discuss them since they're technically not privileged. So that has been this ongoing debate between the committee and Meadows, and the bottom line is that the committee just simply ran out of patience, and that's why they're taking this next step.
Right, and of course, Nikole, if the full House votes in favor of this charge, it's then referred to the Justice Department. Do we think the DOJ will bring charges against Meadows?
Obviously we can't get inside the heads of the Justice Department and what may happen, but this process would be similar to what we saw with Steve Bannon, in that once this is referred out of committee, which it was yesterday, as you mentioned, it goes to the full House and then it gets referred to the Justice Department. And it really is up to the department to decide whether or not to press criminal charges against Meadows. I mean, I think it's important to note these cases are different in part because of the privilege argument. That is something that Steve Bannon also said, or his attorney rather, in terms of his defense in not cooperating with the committee, but he also hadn't worked in the White House for a significant amount of time. On the contrary, you have somebody like Mark Meadows, who was the former president's chief of staff, who, intimately knows him, was working closely with him around the time of January 6th. And so because of that, there could be some things that are privileged as his legal team claims, and that will again have to be a determination that the Justice Department will have to make. This will be referred to a grand jury and it'll go through a process. So this is something that could take a few weeks for them to decide.
Nikole Killion, great. Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much.
You bet.